Well, I like to say that Fred was craft beer's muse. You know, he was always there, and I always think of him as like the angel on everybody's shoulder, talking to everybody about what's going on in his just, you know, sweetest way. He was such a sweet man, and he would always, you know, say things like, "Oh, you know, I'm really looking forward to what you're trying next," or you know, being very positive with people about what they were doing, and encouraging everybody so much.
He was like our godfather, you know, in the sense that Fred was, you know, homebrewing before any of us were even a dream in our child's, you know, our parents' eyes. You know, I mean, he's been around forever and been homebrewing through, you know, gosh, after World War II and all that stuff.
Fred really, I mean, he meant the world to the craft beer scene here. If without Fred, there wouldn't have been the scene. It wouldn't have developed the way that it did. I mean, he was really the pioneer who had that vision to, you know, start writing about these beer styles when nobody else in North America really knew anything about them. And then he was really instrumental in helping folks like the Widmers get started. And, you know, they were brewing alt beer, and so Fred was able to, you know, kind of advise them on stylistic things with that. And then just as other people started out, you know, Adam beer with, you know, Hair of the Dog was something that Fred had done this research on and discovered this ancient style of very, very obscure beer that kind of no one else was doing.
Well, I think he brought a lot of inspiration to the industry as a whole and for beer drinkers in general. Kind of was the first person to really think about beer in styles in different categories. Before that, beer was beer. Depending on where you lived, you got the beer that was made in that area. And unless you traveled around, you really didn't know about any other beers. And so he was really the first guy to write about beers in the modern age, shall we say. I think the one thing that really struck me about Fred was his passion. The fact that he delved so deep into the beer world before it was popular. It kind of swimming against the grain, doing your own thing was fascinating to me.
He was such a figure in the craft beer community that it just seemed like he was always around, and everybody kind of knew him without, you know, really knowing him. But I remember when I finally met him was at the Spring Beer and Wine Fest one year, and he was standing around with a bunch of people congregating around him, and he was you know, sniffing some beer and tasting some beer, and people were talking to him, and he was taking his notes and everything. And I was a longtime reporter wanting to kind of get out of that world, and I saw what he was doing, and I thought, you know, I could do that too.
Well, Fred was kind of a goofball in the sense that he was always quick with a dry joke, or very kind of a dry guy, you know. I mean, the jokes were always kind of, you know, not forced, but they're always there, but you always had to think about them after Fred laid on him. I remember at Great American Beer Festival one year I was judging, and he's like, I must go to bed now, I'm judging beer in the morning, I must go drink my red wine. And I'm like, what's this red wine? He's like, yeah, I drink red wine before bed every night, don't you? And so I've never adopted that, but probably I should, because he lived quite a long life. So,
you know, his smile really was a huge part of him. He always had a smile on his face. He always seemed to enjoy what he was doing. I talked to him quite a few times about how he could be so happy, and he told me he was just happy to be alive. It's a fantastic thing that I always strive to maintain or to attain. One of these days I hope to be happy all the time. It seems impossible.
He'd be serious once in a while, but most of the time he was very playful. He was always just joking with you and ribbing you a little bit, but always very nice and kind to everyone. And you know, that was something that it was really special to see Fred, because he was always, you know, in a good mood and always trying to educate but also have fun.
Well, he was a huge inspiration for me and a big mentor, and so I wanted to do something to say thank you to Fred. And so I thought if I made a beer called Fred, that it would be an adequate thank you. And so I talked to him, brought him to the brewery one day and talked to him about, what do you like in beer, Fred? What are your favorite components? And he liked hops foremost, and rye was the other thing that he liked. And so we made a hoppy rye beer really strong Belgian influences, different than what was available at the time.
A couple of years ago on my birthday, Fred decided to up and call me and leave me a message. And he called us on our home phone, which is our landline. Yeah, we still have a landline. And he left it on our voicemail. And it was just the cutest message. And he just sounded, he was in good health. He sounded good. And he just had that impish sound in his voice, because he can be really honoring when he wants to be. And he just, yeah, it was just the cutest thing. I decided to actually record it from my phone, and I have a copy of it on my cell phone now to keep with me forever, just because it was such a special Fred moment.
Lisa, this is Fred. I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. I can't imagine you're 51. You're too beautiful for that. Anyway, have a nice birthday, and you don't have to call me back. But if you did, I'd answer. Take care.